You know, I really didn't want to have to make this kind of video about Jared Vanderbilt. I like the guy and I definitely root for him and have rooted for him. I like that he's a hard worker, but at this point it's become apparent that he's not a big part of their team. In fact, he literally was a DNP in their last game, not playing a single minute against the Utah Jazz, which did coincide with LeBron coming back, therefore taking more minutes of their wing rotation within their rotation, obviously being behind LeBron, Rui Hachimura, and Jake Arabia. And even before LeBron came back, Vanderbilt was steadily losing playing time, only playing 8 minutes against the Milwaukee Bucks, 4 or 5 of which were garbage time minutes, and at this point he's not really become a big part or a vital part of their team, let alone their current rotation. Simply isn't a good fit with Luka Doncic, isn't a good floor spacer, therefore he can't play with another poor floor spacer on the court, at least not effectively and with the offense and scheme they want to run, therefore not allowing him to play with either DeAndre Ayton or Jackson Hayes very effectively. Also with either Luka, Austin, or LeBron on the court, it doesn't really work for their offense and what JJ Redick wants to do. Again, not me saying that he has no use and doesn't have any value to a team, isn't able to have an impact, but he's simply not a great fit for what JJ Redick wants and therefore he's been removed from the rotation, especially with the return of LeBron. And well, at this point, it has many fans questioning if they might trade him or think about trading him, even if they can trade him for that fact. After all, he definitely has a pretty bad contract at this point. A few years ago, they gave him a 4-year, $48 million contract, in which he is now in the second year of, currently making $11.5 million this season, $12.4 million next season, and $13.2 million during the 2027-28 NBA season, all of which are fully guaranteed and he has a player option for that final year. One of only 2 contracts the Lakers have no control over, the only other one being Luka Doncic, which they obviously are fine with. They just gave him that contract and he'll definitely be worth it. But apart from Luka and Vanderbilt, they have no contracts that they have no control over going beyond next season. 0 other contracts that don't have either a team option or a non-guaranteed contract. The only 2 are Luka Doncic and Jared Vanderbilt, which is obviously some weird company to be in, as Vanderbilt is nowhere near the level of Luka Doncic, and they don't value him anywhere near that level as well. In fact, they probably don't value him very highly at all at this point. I mean, currently having a pretty rough year for himself, playing roughly 18 minutes per game, many of which are garbage time minutes, especially during the past couple of weeks now. On top of that, averaging only 4.5 points per game, which isn't very important for Jared Vanderbilt, but if the defense isn't there for him and he's currently having a down year defensively, not to the level that he once was at and showing that he might be capable of, which was a near elite level on defense, then the offense becomes more apparent. And at this point, averaging only 4.5 points per game, shooting a career low 44% from the field, shooting very poorly at the rim and at the 3-point line, therefore he's not effective at any one area of the court offensively, shooting only 28% from the 3-point line, and simply put, there's been little to no improvement with him. Yes, it's still early and I'm hoping and kind of cautiously optimistic that he might eventually be able to improve, but that might be a bit of wishful thinking, as he's really shown no improvement over the past 3 years now, only making 8 3-point shots during the 23-24 NBA season, 9 of them during the 24-25 NBA season, not to mention barely breaking the 50-game mark in those 2 years combined. Now during this season in 14 games played, only making 4 of them out of 14 attempts. And well, if you're not helping offensively, in fact, if you're hurting the team offensively, and even a liability on the court, and then you're not making it up on defense, then not enough to justify keeping you out there. Again, I think he's been good, not quite great, but not doing enough for Redick to keep him out there, not doing enough to keep him as a vital part of the rotation, then kind of what's the point of keeping him if you have an option to do so? However, that's really the problem here with Jared Vanderbilt. Pointing back to that contract and pointing to his current numbers and overall impact, he has little to no trade value. In fact, you can argue that he might have negative trade value. And that's really where it gets complicated here. Unlike a guy like Gabe Vincent or Maxi Kleber for example, who although are not extremely valuable and putting up the best numbers, they have expiring contracts, meaning that no matter what after this season, their contract comes off the books and a rebuilding team that might trade for them or might be open to trading for them simply to offload salary off their own team is completely fine with that because they're not trying to win and therefore they have no long-term commitment to the contract that they will be trading for, which would simply not be the case for Jared Vanderbilt. If a rebuilding team or any team for that fact would trade for Jared Vanderbilt, they have at least 2 more years after this season of guaranteed money that they have no control over. If they trade for him, Vanderbilt will hit their payroll and will impact it for another 2 years plus. As if instead you would maybe try to stretch that contract, use a stretch provision on that contract, then it would hit your payroll for another 3 to 5 years plus. So yeah, definitely not much value there with the contract of Jared Vanderbilt. His current impact actually dictates negative trade value in my opinion, and therefore the Lakers might not have much choice. Yes, they might want to trade him, might want to maybe move him from their payroll and get him off their payroll, but it's not going to happen at this point, barring them including some trade assets with him, which I don't think would be smart as they don't have many trade assets. Don't want to attach an asset to simply get rid of Jared Vanderbilt. I don't think that would be a good trade to make. Yes, again, he's not a great fit for their team and what they're trying to accomplish offensively, but I think he still has more value on their team, simply as a backup and I guess kind of injury replacement at this point, rather than trying to trade him for literal no trade value, and the fact that you would have to attach an asset with him to simply get rid of him. In my opinion, it might not be pretty right now and he might not be a great fit, but he still has more value to their team than he would through a trade. And even with the wishful thinking and conscious optimism that he might be able to improve with time, maybe as he works with the training staff more and maybe as he becomes a bit more comfortable with JJ Redick's offense. After all, he didn't play that much within it last season, not to mention that this is currently a different team than last season, currently operating with more bigs on the court, both Jackson Hayes and DeAndre Ayton pretty much on the court at all times, a little bit different than last year where they ran a ton of small ball, therefore giving Vanderbilt more leeway offensively, as he was pretty much playing with a floor spacer at pretty much all times in the court, making it so he was pretty much the only or the only below average floor spacer on the court, rarely playing with Jackson Hayes, let alone another big like DeAndre Ayton. That actually helped him out. Yes, they kind of hurt him defensively as it put him more toward the rim, rather than letting him roam or pick on the best ball handler on the court and try to be a pest. In some ways it hurt him, but in other ways it helped him. Helped him offensively, but hurt him defensively. But this season it's currently hurting him both offensively and defensively a bit too, as they're still not using him in that defensive role that I would like them to ideally let him fill. And on top of that, he's simply not looking as good defensively too. So right now they're currently in a pretty weird situation with Jared Vanderbilt. On one hand, they'd probably like to trade him, but they really can't trade him, at least not for any trade value. It would be more of a hassle to trade him and they would have to include a trade asset to simply get rid of him, which I wouldn't do at this point. It's not to the place where he's a bad locker room guy for them, that he has absolutely no value to their team at all. Yes, he might have no trade value, but I think he has some value to their team, simply from a depth standpoint. I guess from a matchup standpoint, there might be better matchups for him than others. Yes, he's not the best fit for their current offense, and unfortunately that probably won't change, but I still like Jared Vanderbilt and think he does have something to offer here and there. I wish he would be a better fit, I wish that Redick would find a better way to use him, but it doesn't really seem that way going forward. And at this point, he's kind of just a backup on their team. I wish he had an expiring contract so they could either let him go, reorganize their team, or simply get him off their payroll. But at this point, he is under contract for 3 more years, has no trade value, and doesn't have a place within their current rotation. Again, definitely hoping for Vanderbilt to get back to his former level, get back to his borderline elite defense, and that being his calling card within the rotation. At this point, I think it will take either somebody getting hurt or playing poorly ahead of him to let him get a shot again, to actual rotation minutes and not simply matchup dependent games, but to be in every member rotation for them, for Redick to put more trust in him, and hopefully Vanderbilt can eventually validate that, getting a bit better offensively, whether that comes with 3-point shooting or not, making better backdoor cuts, finishing better at the rim, making better passes, and being more trustworthy with the ball and simply within their offense. Really hoping for that. But at this point, he is out of the rotation, probably is not going to be a permanent member of it, with LeBron now being back, with Jake Arabia being firmly ahead of him, obviously Rui Hachimura as well. Not really a big need for him at this point, and we're seeing that with JJ Redick in the current rotation. But those are only my thoughts, I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about Jared Vanderbilt's place with the Lakers right now? Do you think they can or will eventually trade him? Do you think he should be out of their rotation? And what's the outlook with him with their team going forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching, and have a great day or night.